Have you ever felt like the world has taken everything from you? Like your kindness was mistaken for weakness, your sensitivity labeled as fragility, and your deep care for others left you drained, depleted, and questioning your very existence? If you're watching this right now, there's a reason. Because what I'm about to share with you isn't just theory. It's a truth that Carl Jung himself understood deeply as psychological phenomenon that's about to change everything for you. The empath's greatest struggle is about to become their most powerful transformation. And if you've been through the darkness, if you've been broken down, dismissed, or made to feel like your gifts are curses, this is your moment. Stay with me for the next hour, because we're going to journey together through Jung's most profound insights about the empathic soul. And by the end, you'll understand why. Everything you've endured wasn't random. Suffering it was preparation. Chapter 1. The Wounded Healer. Let me start by telling you a story that Carl Jung himself experienced. In 1913, Jung was at the height of his career. He had worked alongside Sigmund Freud, was respected internationally, and seemed to have everything figured out. But then something happened, descended into what he called his confrontation with the unconscious. For years, he wrestled with visions, dreams, and psychological turmoil that would have broken most people. But here's what makes this story relevant to you. Jung emerged from that darkness with a concept that would define his life's work, the archetype of the wounded healer. The wounded healer understands something that others don't. They know that true wisdom doesn't come from avoiding pain, but from descending into it, understanding it, and emerging transformed. And if you're an empath, you are a wounded healer. Think about your life for a moment. How many times have you absorbed other people's pain? How many times have you carried emotional weight that wasn't even yours? How many relationships have you poured yourself into only to be left empty? Jung would say this wasn't weakness. This was your unconscious preparing you for something greater. He believed that those with the deepest sensitivity to suffering were being called to a higher purpose, not to be victims of the world's pain, but to be alchemists who transform it. And here's the crucial insight. Every empath reaches a breaking point, a moment where they can no longer continue as they have been. Jung called this the dark night of the soul, a necessary death before rebirth. If you're in that place right now, or if you've recently emerged from it, I want you to understand something profound. You're not broken. You're breaking through. The empath's sensitivity, which the world has taught you to see as a liability, is actually your greatest asset. But first, you had to be broken down. You had to lose everything you thought defined you. Because what's coming next requires a version of you that's been refined by fire. Chapter 2. The Shadow Integration. Now, let's talk about something that most people don't want to face. Jung called it the shadow. Your shadow is everything you've repressed, denied, or hidden about yourself. And for empaths, the shadow is particularly complex because you've spent your entire life focusing on others. You've been so attuned to everyone else's needs, emotions, and pain that you've neglected your own darkness. But here's what Jung discovered. You cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge, and you cannot integrate what you continue to repress. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. Have you ever been angry at someone for taking advantage of your kindness, but then felt guilty for that anger? Have you ever wanted to say no, to set a boundary, to walk away from someone draining you, but then felt like you were being selfish? That's your shadow trying to speak to you. For years, you've probably been told that your value lies in being nice, accommodating, and selfless. But Jung would challenge that completely. He would say that a person who only identifies with their light, with their kindness and compassion becomes psychologically lopsided. They become a victim. The empath's comeback doesn't begin with being kinder. It begins with integrating their shadow, acknowledging their anger, their boundaries, their right to say no, their capacity for self-preservation. Let me tell you about Sarah. She was a therapist who spent her entire career helping others heal. She was beloved by her clients, praised for her empathy, and known as someone who would always go the extra mile. But behind closed doors, Sarah was exhausted, resentful, and slowly losing herself. One day, after a particularly draining session, she broke down. And in that breakdown, something shifted. She realized that her endless giving wasn't love, it was fear. Fear of being rejected if she set boundaries. Fear of being seen as selfish if she prioritized herself. Fear of confronting her own needs. Sarah's comeback began when she stopped running from her shadow. She started saying no. She started recognizing her anger as valid information rather than something to suppress. She started understanding that boundaries weren't walls, they were sacred containers that protected her energy. And here's what Jung teaches us. When you integrate your shadow, you don't become less compassionate. You become more powerful in your compassion because it's now coming from wholeness, not depletion. The empath's comeback requires you to stop being everyone's emotional dumping ground and start being the guardian of your own energy. It requires you to embrace the parts of yourself that want to fight back, speak up, and protect your peace. This isn't about becoming cold or cruel. It's about becoming complete. Chapter 3. The Individuation Process. Now we come to what Jung considered the central task of human existence: individuation. Individuation is the process of becoming who you truly are rather than who the world told you to be. And for empaths, this process is both painful and necessary. Think about it. Your entire life, you've probably adapted yourself to other people. You've learned to read rooms, adjust your energy, become what others needed you to be. You've been a chameleon, not because you're fake, but because your sensitivity made you acutely aware of others' expectations. But here's the cost. You lost yourself in the process. Jung believed that most people live their first half of life according to external expectations, parents, society, culture. But at some point, usually triggered by a crisis, they're called to a second journey, the journey inward, the journey to discover their authentic self. For empaths, this crisis often looks like complete burnout, betrayal by someone they trusted, or a sudden realization that they've been giving to people who never truly valued them. If that's happened to you, here's what you need to understand. That wasn't a breakdown. That was a breakthrough trying to happen. Jung himself went through this. After his split with Freud, he lost professional standing, friendships, and certainty about his life's direction. But he used that time to go inward. He explored his dreams, dialogued with his unconscious, and created what would become his most important work. He emerged not as a replica of Freud, not as what the psychological community expected, but as himself as Carl Jung, with his own unique contribution to humanity. Your comeback isn't about returning to who you were before. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be. This means you might need to let go of relationships that were based on your old, people-pleasing self. It means you might need to disappoint people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. It means you might need to walk away from versions of yourself that no longer serve you. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who your parents wanted, not who your friends expect, not who society demands, but who you are at your core." For the empath, individuation means claiming your sensitivity not as something to apologize for, but as your superpower. It means understanding that your depth of feeling isn't a flaw in a shallow world. It's a gift that the world desperately needs. But the world only receives that gift when it comes from a whole, integrated, boundaried person, not from someone who's perpetually depleted and resentful. So how do you actually do this? How do you individuate? How do you become yourself? First, you must listen to your inner voice more than outer opinions. Jung worked extensively with dreams, active imagination, and creative expression as ways to access the unconscious. Start paying attention to what your dreams are telling you. What keeps showing up? What symbols appear? What emotions emerge? Second, you must be willing to disappoint people. This is crucial. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you abandon yourself. Every time you prioritize someone else's comfort over your own truth, you betray your individuation process. Third, you must find your unique expression. What makes you you? Not your role as helper, not your identity as the empathic friend, but your essence. What would you create, do, or become if you weren't worried about anyone else's reaction? Your comeback is waiting on the other side of your willingness to become who you truly are. Chapter 4. The Collective Unconscious and the Empath's Calling. Now we're going to explore something that will completely reframe how you see your empathic nature. Jung discovered something revolutionary. Beneath our personal unconscious lies something deeper, the collective unconscious. This is a shared psychological foundation that all humans inherit, filled with universal symbols, patterns, and instincts he called archetypes. The collective unconscious is why people across different cultures have similar myths, why certain symbols appear universally, and why we can feel deeply connected to stories we've never personally experienced. But here's what this means for you as an empath. Your sensitivity isn't just personal. You're not just picking up on individual people's emotions. You're tuned into something much larger, the collective psyche of humanity. This is why you feel the world's pain so deeply. This is why you can walk into a room and immediately sense the energy. This is why you're affected by global events, injustices you see on the news, and suffering that has nothing to do with your personal life. You're not being dramatic. You're not being overly sensitive. You're accessing the collective unconscious in a way that most people have learned to shut down. Jung believed that certain individuals are called to be bridges between the conscious and unconscious worlds. He called them visionaries, artists, mystics, but we could also call them empaths. Your sensitivity is a form of perception. You're perceiving emotional and psychic realities that others can't or won't see. And yes, this has been painful. Yes, this has made your life harder. But it's also your calling. Throughout history, the most profound healers, artists, and change makers have been highly sensitive people. They felt the world suffering so deeply that they couldn't turn away from it. They had to respond, create, heal, or transform. Think about the great humanitarians, the poets who captured universal human experience, the therapists who truly see their clients' souls. They weren't successful despite their sensitivity. They were successful because of it. But here's the key distinction Jung would make. You can't help the collective if you're drowning in it. This is where so many empaths get stuck. They feel the world's pain. They feel called to help, but they have no boundaries, no grounding, no way to process what they're absorbing. So they become overwhelmed, burnt out, and eventually cynical or shut down. Your comeback requires you to develop what Jung might call a temenos, a sacred, protected space. In ancient Greek, temenos referred to a sacred precinct, a sanctuary. Psychologically, it's your inner sanctuary, the protected psychological space where you can retreat, integrate, and replenish. This means creating rituals that ground you. This means having practices that help you distinguish between your emotions and others' emotions. This means building a life structure that supports your sensitivity rather than exploits it. Jung spent time every day in what he called active imagination, deliberately, engaging with his inner world through writing, drawing, and reflection. He built a tower retreat at Bollingen, where he could disconnect from the demands of the outer world and reconnect with his depths. You need your version of this. What's your temenos? Where's your sanctuary? How do you create space between yourself and the collective energy you're absorbing? Because here's the truth. The world needs empaths now more than ever. We live in a time of collective trauma, disconnection, and emotional numbness. The world needs people who can still feel, who can still care, who can still perceive the deeper currents beneath surface reality. But it needs you whole, not broken. It needs you boundaried, not depleted. It needs you individuated, not people-pleasing. Your comeback isn't just personal, it's archetypal. You're answering a call that's been echoing through the collective unconscious, waiting for those brave enough to respond. Chapter 5. The Integration Walking the Path Between Worlds. We're now entering the final stage of understanding your comeback. And this is where everything comes together. Jung spent his later years exploring what he called the transcendent function, the psychological capacity to hold opposites in tension and allow something new to emerge. For empaths, this is your ultimate task, to walk the path between worlds. You must be in the world but not consumed by it. You must feel deeply but not drown. You must care profoundly but not at the cost of your own soul. You must be open but boundaried, soft but strong, compassionate but discerning. This is the integration that Jung spoke of, not choosing between your sensitivity and your strength, but holding both. Let me be honest with you about what your comeback will actually look like. It won't be a dramatic moment where everything suddenly makes sense. It will be a series of small, brave choices. It will be the day you finally say no to someone who's used to you saying yes. It will be the moment you choose your peace over someone else's comfort. It will be the practice of coming back to yourself again and again when you notice you've abandoned your center. Your comeback will look like boundaries that feel uncomfortable at first. It will look like disappointing people who benefited from your lack of self-care. It will look like honoring your needs, even when a voice inside says you're being selfish. Growing sense of aliveness, a return of your creative energy, a clarity about who you are and what you're here to do. But it will also look like a capacity to help others from overflow rather than depletion. Imagine a well. For years, everyone has been drawing water from your well. They've taken freely, assuming the water would never run dry. And you've let them, believing that your value was in giving endlessly. But the well has run dry. You've hit rock bottom. And in that emptiness, you've discovered something. Deep beneath where the water was, there's a spring, a source that's always been there but was covered by the water you were giving away. This spring is different. It's yours. It's connected to something infinite, but it requires you to protect it, to honor it, to stop giving away more than it replenishes. Your comeback is about reconnecting to your source. Not the learned behavior of giving until you're empty, but the true source of your empathic gift, which is connected to something much larger than your individual pain or sacrifice. Jung would call this connecting to the self, the deeper, organizing principle of your psyche that's connected to the collective and the divine. When you operate from this place, your empathy doesn't deplete you. It flows through you. You become a channel rather than a reservoir that everyone drains. So what does this actually mean practically? It means you wake up and check in with yourself before you check your phone. It means you ask, what do I need today? Before you ask, what does everyone else need from me? It means you notice when you're absorbing energy that isn't yours and consciously release it. It means you stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. It means you trust your intuition even when it doesn't make logical sense. It means you honor your need for solitude, for nature, for creative expression, for whatever replenishes your specific soul. Your sensitivity is not something to manage, tolerate, or overcome. It's something to honor, protect, and channel. Jung said, "Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." You're awakening now. After all the dreaming, all the giving away of yourself, all the confusion about why your gift felt like a curse, you're finally awakening to who you truly are and what you're truly capable of. Chapter 6. The Comeback, Your New Beginning. So here we are, the moment you've been waiting for. Let's talk about your comeback. Everything you've been through, every betrayal, every disappointment, every moment you felt too much or cared too deeply was not random suffering. It was initiation. Jung believed that the psyche is always moving toward wholeness. Even when it looks like breakdown, it's actually breakthrough trying to happen. The universe wasn't punishing you for being an empath. It was preparing you. Your comeback begins the moment you decide that. Your sensitivity is a strength, not a weakness. It begins when you stop apologizing for your depth in a shallow world. It begins when you recognize that the people who couldn't handle your intensity were never your people. Your comeback looks like recognizing your worth without external validation. It looks like walking away from relationships, jobs, and situations that require you to shrink. It looks like trusting that when you honor yourself, you make space for people who will honor you too. I want you to imagine something with me. Imagine yourself 6 months from now, a year from now. You've done the work. You've integrated your shadow. You've set boundaries. You've individuated. You've created your temenos. You're no longer giving from depletion. You're giving from overflow. People can feel the difference. There's a groundedness to you now, a clarity. Your empathy is still there, maybe even deeper, but it's no longer destroying you. You're attracting different people now. Not people who need you to save them, but people who meet you as equals. Not people who drain you, but people who energize you. Not people who exploit your gifts, but people who celebrate them. You're creating work that matters. Work that uses your empathic gifts without exploiting them. You're expressing yourself authentically. You're no longer performing the version of yourself that others expect. And here's the most important part. You're at peace with yourself. You've stopped fighting your nature and started honoring it. You've stopped trying to be less sensitive and started being more boundaried. You've stopped dimming your light and started protecting it. Jung spent the last decades of his life writing, teaching, and helping others find their path to individuation. But he never forgot his dark night. He never forgot the years of confusion and struggle. In fact, he said those were the most important years of his life because they taught him who he truly was. Your difficult years haven't been wasted. They've been forging you into something remarkable. Someone who knows pain but hasn't become bitter. Someone who's been broken but has learned to heal. Someone who's felt everything and emerged with wisdom, not just wounds. This is your time. This is your comeback. Not as the person you were, but as the person you're becoming. The empath who knows their worth. The healer who's healed themselves. The sensitive soul who's learned to channel their gift powerfully. Everything that tried to break you has actually been making you. And now you're ready. If you've stayed with me for this entire journey, I want to acknowledge you. It takes a certain kind of person to sit with depth, to explore their inner world, to do the hard work of transformation. Carl Jung once wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." You've been through the fire. You've descended into the underworld. You've faced your shadow, questioned everything, and felt like you might not make it through. But you did. And now you're not just surviving. You're about to thrive in a way you never have before. If this video resonated with you, I want you to do something. Don't just passively watch and move on. Take one action today that honors your empath comeback. Set one boundary. Say one no. Create 1 hour of protected time just for yourself. Share this video with another empath who needs to hear this message. Leave a comment below and tell me one thing you're committing to as part of your comeback. Let's build a community of empaths who are reclaiming their power. Subscribe to this channel if you want more content exploring psychology, depth, and transformation. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next journey we take together. Remember, your sensitivity is not your weakness. It's your superpower, but only when you protect it, honor it, and express it from wholeness. Your comeback isn't coming. It's already here. Welcome home to yourself.